Ben.
I have a fan blowing on me. Hopefully that's not going to be too annoying for anybody, but it is 31 degrees here again today. So how are you doing for heat where you are?
Yeah, not too bad. I've had the curtains closed most of the time, so I can't feel. So it hasn't warmed up the room too much.
Thank you, Water Pixie. My Water Pixie wife. Hello, Ben and Sam. Hello, Muzu. You're good to see you here. So we are doing the RPG handover from me to Sam. So Sam is going to extract sense and glory from my brain by sharing the project and asking lots of questions. So just want to check it's all good. Streaming okay? Hearing us okay? Hearing Ben okay?
Hearing Sam okay?
Hearing Sam okay? We won't do the joke that Mike and I normally do. We go Mike check and then Ben check. Mike check.
Yeah, because it wouldn't work so well.
Perceptual, I don't think the time for this changed. No. Do you think the time? Maybe time zones changed. I don't think so. Let me just check the events page, just in case. But I don't think it did change. Do you think it changed? Hope it didn't. You're here, which is the main thing.
Yeah, I'm
2
here.
p.m. our time. No, we are good. We are at the right time. Yeah. So it's pretty normal. The next one, by the way, guys, just to let you know, will be 8 p.m. our time, which is 6 hours later than this next week, next Tuesday. All right. Hey, Brian, all the usual suspects here. So, Sam, go for it. Let's see it.
Share the screen, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. And just bring up the chat as well, making sure I can see what the folks are saying.
Oh, yeah. You may be able to get it up on you bring it up on your phone, are you?
Yeah, got it up on mobile.
Okay. Hey, Perceptual. Hey, Brian. Hey, everybody. Morning. Alex, welcome. Not seen you before.
Afternoon.
Or afternoon. Wherever you are in the world, it's going to be different time of day because that's how the sun works.
Happy 2 o'clock GMT.
Hey, Terrorvice Jason. Welcome. Good to see you as well. There may be a little bit of background noise here because we're having drainage work done outside, so excuse that. So yeah, crack open the project, Sam. Let's start going through it.
Okay. So this is the project. And I roughly know, am I going to have to remember how to do, oh no, I'm in game view, that helps.
So we need to frame a couple of things. Sam is going to be prototyping this for the next few weeks, or possibly less than a few weeks before he starts shipping into the course. That's going to be up to him and Rick when they start shipping versus how much prototyping they do first. But Sam hasn't used Unity for a little while, so of course he taught the Unity Cert course and knows Unity, but just has been in Unreal context. So if he's a bit
rusty,
that's a politically correct term, a bit slow with the interface, then excuse him. Make apologies for you, Sam.
Thank you. Thanks for apologising for me. Well, we'll see now whether I actually.
Can you minimise that Camtasia window if you can, just to?
Yes. Don't know why that one's there. All right. So I've been having a little bit of a play around with it. I don't know whether all the folks on the stream are up to date or not, whether would like a little playthrough of the current functionality. Maybe you can let us know in the chat. So I believe at the moment we've got some rudimentary questing systems in place. And obviously we've got core combat done from part 1. So I can run around and hit people over the head.
Like these ugly, so just to explain these ugly dialogue things, these are conspicuously needing replacement. That's why I've left them like that, rather than putting something that accidentally doesn't. So you can work with Rick on what he wants to replace that with asset-wise.
Yeah, I've just got to figure out how I can reduce the volume of Unity, because I'm absolutely can't hear anything you're saying.
Okay.
Try that. That's a bit better. Okay.
Perceptual's having trouble with the Twitch app, but I think everybody else okay on the stream at the moment? No problems sound-wise? Good to check. Should be right.
I'm all right.
Awesome.
Is there a reason this scaling is a bit messed up? Do I need to do...
we haven't gone into fixing the aspect, but 16:9 would be the aspect to constrain it to.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense.
Hey, XBT Nuke, good to see you here. So yeah, moving around, etc., etc. So, how much of the first part do you remember, stroke, have in your head about the core combat? I guess not much of it. Sam.
Not much at all, really.
Okay, so we.
How much do I need to know though about core combat? Probably not that much. Only the bits that touch.
enough for when we need to be building on it. So it's up to you how you want to do this. If you want to start going through the scripts, and I can talk to you about the namespace segregations is the highest level probably. From a function point of view. The things that tend to be talking to the new functionality are things like the camera raycaster. You'll see the architecture. So big world, lots of stuff in it. With Rick about like what the thought about the layouts of the level are and where he's going with the design of it, etc. But I guess our priority is to focus on the code architecture, right?
Yeah.
Hey Brian, thanks for the cheer and well done getting to the top of the leaderboard. This is the August leaderboard and you have taken first place. Good job. So the scripts are, obviously you could just filter for all scripts in here or in that little filter on the right hand side over there. Or we can just go through the folders. At the moment they're not in a single script folder.
Totally in the wrong place.
They're broken down by module. So
the annotations are totally in the wrong place.
Oh, are they? Oh, it's a real pain when it does that.
Don't know whether it is for them. Probably not for them, so that might help.
Yeah, so there was there was an idea of using underscores. So if you wonder why some of these directories have underscores, that was to make them float to the top. But in Unity 2018, there is all of the packages are down the bottom of the assets. So we don't need to be using underscores necessarily. We could move away from that. They've put packages in this new top-level packages thing that never used to be there.
Oh, cool. That's
if
nice.
it's choppy, it's probably Unity stroke Zoom rendering the terrain. If you can hear us okay and see our small but present videos, cheer boop, cheer war, then we're all good. Hey Teravice, how you doing? Good to see you, buddy. And thank you for the cheers. Yeah, so you could look at streams across the board like that. There are quite a few scripts built into Unity's packages, so that's obviously going to be there as well.
Surely, if I'm just in assets, this is just our stuff, no?
If you're just in assets, it should be, yes.
I think I'll just have a look from the top level. The folder hierarchy should be useful.
So camera UI is probably one of the first things to look at because a lot of things use it as a feature. Now the namespaces don't necessarily overlap with the folders, so the code namespaces aren't exactly the same thing necessarily. So the first thing we made, I think, of relevance, one of the earliest things we ever made, camera follow is fairly trivial. So to get us warmed up, maybe look at camera follow.
I think that should be all right. We can maybe just skip over that. I'm fairly sure.
Yeah, that is pretty, I think, maybe just have a preview of it, see if there's anything special. I don't think there is. I think it's pretty noddy. Yeah, it's really simple. It's just a late update tracking of the player transform. It's on an arm of the player. So then the camera raycaster, probably worth looking at the code for that a moment. That is used a lot.
Let's see whether I've got Visual Studio set up, moment of truth, for Unity.
Might need to run that. Otherwise, we can look at these scripts in some other editor. If a lighter weight editor, it doesn't really matter for looking at them.
Looks like it's going to be okay.
So my annotations aren't in the right place. That's a shame, so I can't annotate over your screen. Bum. I wonder why they do that. Something to do with the resolution scaling, I think.
Yeah, don't seem to get the resolution scaling right. I mean, maybe if I restarted Zoom.
So BitGame, we could. It may be worth doing that. You could do real quick. Try it real quick while I answer BitGamey's suggestion. So thanks for that. Use BG underscore as a folder prefix. Oh, for BitGamey. Okay, that's cool. So the thing you're pointing out there is so that things don't get overwritten by other imported assets. Yeah, it is a valid point. When you import packages from somebody else's Unity assets, they can just decide what folders they go into, and it could end up overwriting your stuff. So some sort of, well done, Teravice, some sort of prefixing is not a bad idea. BitGamey was just pointing out how other people's asset packs can end up overwriting your folder structure. So he uses a BG, presumably for BitGamey, prefix in front of all of his folders. I think we'll just be careful when we do our imports rather than doing that. So Sam, oh, whoa, that's fun. That's not what I wanted at all.
What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to annotate on your screen. Give me a second.
Try and highlight this.
Yeah, I will. Give me just a sec. It's, I need to get rid of this vilq thing because we don't need that. Okay. Annotate. Let's clear the annotations. Start again. Okay, so highlight that on the mouse over enemy. Do we have it over the top of that?
Yay!
Woohoo! So it seems that whatever res you have when you first start Zoom, it kind of seems to remember or
Caches
something
it,
like
yeah.
that, and then gets
Rubbish like that.
really confused.
Nice.
All right, so one of the things I've been doing with this, Sam, at the very top of the file is being very careful to namespace everything. So all of the classes, or hopefully all of the classes, are in namespaces somewhere.
At least
So
in the
that's
RPG namespace.
What's that?
At least in the RPG namespace, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, so everything's sub-namespaced under rpg.something. I don't know why we're using characters twice there. That's a bit strange. That obviously is not necessary. So the top level dependencies obviously are eked out here. So the raycaster depends on characters. Why? Because it needs to know things about characters, like if we look at the interface here, or at least the delegates, whether you're over an enemy, over something that's got a voice, which is new, or over the terrain. Whoa, there's lots of chat going on. I better keep an eye on that.
Just reminding myself what this looks like. Okay. So what? Why does that take from characters? Because this is from characters, is it?
Yeah, to know that it's an enemy. Arguably, we could use a single interface here or something, which we're not doing at the moment. We've got to the. If we start adding any more mouse over events here, it might be a neater way to do this that you decide upon using interfaces, something like that. But this is what we're doing at the moment. So we've got 3 delegates. We're using the event keyword to protect against accidental overwriting of the lists.
Yep. I remember that.
So at the moment, I've got a to-do here to... You're right. His seats run away with him.
No, I'm just getting a proper chat. Yep.
Oh yeah, okay, Teravice. We'll get you to we'll get to the point where we talk about the questing architecture, Jason, shortly. So thanks for that. Tasty Graph's seen a typo. Where's the typo? At the top of this class, there's some sort of typo. We should probably take his advice and fix it. Here, detect. It's in the comment.
All right. Well, I'm looking at this one.
Oh yeah, and another one. So let's do both. Thank you, guys.
And that one's not very hard.
This new drive array. I thought it was going to be nice and quiet when I first turned it on, and as I said, then it woke up. It's pretty quiet, but it's slightly annoying. So yeah, in update, what we haven't done yet is treated UI interaction differently, because there isn't any kind of strict pure UI yet, apart from, well, actually there isn't any. So under update, there's a to-do left there to treat UI interaction a little bit differently.
Where here?
Is in the if here. So we're just raycasting to the world at the moment. We're not raycasting and deciding what happens with UI interaction, because we haven't put like button UI, pop-up dart inventory and stuff like that in yet.
That wouldn't happen in the world anyway, would it?
No, that's why you're either performing raycast into the
before.
world, or you're dealing with UI. That's the distinction there, just to be clear. So we're only raycasting into the world at the moment.
So we won't perform a raycast if the UI tackles it first, and that doesn't happen automatically.
No, not fully automatically, or it certainly didn't in Unity 2017 when this was written. So we were having to query and see what we were over,
Makes
and then
sense.
decide how to perform differently. But in general terms, we perform raycasts. It's very simple. If the mouse is in the screen, then we form a ray and we interact with each of the 3 possible things and then stop. So we only do 1 interaction per frame. We're either interacting with voice, enemy, or walkable, and we're setting the preferences there effectively. So if something's got a voice, then it takes, so that it's talk before fight and fight before walk, basically.
Yeah, they cut off each other.
Yeah. And then they're all almost the same. We nearly genericized this stuff, but didn't, because they were sufficiently different that the pattern wasn't completely clear yet. But I think if you start adding any more of these layer types, then this needs an architectural chain.
So setting the cursor on mouse over.
Yeah, so you're broadcasting an event to the delegates.
And we don't handle click in here. We handle that wherever we're handling the on mouse over.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
Azrael Studio, thank you for... Oh, tier 2, look at that. Thank you very much for subscribing. So that's the camera raycaster, pretty core to the whole thing. It's going around and raycasting all the time and deciding what the cursor affordance is, the cursor switching out, and it is then also sending out to delegates that want to know about things. So that's that. Any questions or concerns?
Seems clear enough.
Fairly clear script. It's on the limit architecturally of needing a recombobulation, I think is a technical term. Coin display
I feel like it does a little
simple.
bit too much in terms of it. It's not just responsible for raycasting, right? I would make this a script that's responsible only for generically kind of ordering the layers or something, and then giving mouse over events to something else, maybe.
Yeah, probably. But it's, we've got to be careful about the total number of scripts as well. It's only 100 lines, so I'm a little bit aware that we've already got a lot of scripts for people to keep track of. So. Is raycasting all the efficient? We haven't seen any issues, Brian, in the performance profiler yet. So, again, to recap the general principle is keep circling, keep circling. The game at the moment is not at all interesting for anybody to play. It's nowhere near. It's something you could even hardly show somebody to get the taste of whether anybody's interested in engaging with your game.
Raycasts are fairly cheap, I think, anyway.
I think they're probably fairly cheap, but we just don't care right now. When the performance profiler shows us that that's a problem, we'll deal with it. So, coin display is ridiculously simple. It's just polling off the player health, so we can kind of walk over that. That's gone in relatively recently.
All right. So let's. Why is that camera UI? So what's the rationale of what goes under camera UI?
So at the moment it's camera and UI, and the coin display is UI. So
camera and UI. Okay.
Yeah, camera and UI, because camera and UI very much go together in this, in that the UI is just slapped on the front of the camera. It's a screen space UI.
Okie doke.
This is not for world space UI. World space UI stuff would be part of the characters.
I feel like core should be something quite important.
There's not a lot in core.
What does spin me do?
It literally rotates any game object you attach to it too at a certain number of rotations per minute in the X, Y, and Z. It's used on the windmill, and again you could right-click on Spin Me and say Find References in Scene, and it's used to make the windmill blade spin in a slightly wonky way, because the part of this game's vibe is that it's quirky and funny. So we didn't want the windmill blade just spinning. We wanted it spinning in a slightly wonky way. So it rotates in both X, Y, and Z. And it's subtle, but it just gives you there's something wrong with the way that windmill. It's like the axis is wobbly. So.
Yep. Quirky windmills. Got it. Right, how do I stop that? There we go. This is all game object, audio trigger. Is that just a one you're in within a distance?
Yep, that's just a distance-based audio trigger.
Yep.
So these are just things that are of general utility across the project. A couple of things in the chat I just need to address. Terravice is saying you almost made a squirrel killer icon. I think if there's not too much blood, that would be quite fun. This is when you need to tell us to stop squirreling. So Tasty Graph is confirming that the raycasts are pretty cheap through the mouse. Thanks for asking, Bryant, by the way. Cool. All right, let's carry on. What do you want to know next? I'm gonna go down in the world with my chair.
Characters looks like it has an awful lot in it.
It does have an awful lot in it. So characters we are calling NPCs and players characters. They're composed. They're very much composition based at the moment. Whether you're an NPC, an enemy, or a player really just depends which components you've got on you.
Yep.
So something becomes an enemy when it has an enemy AI component. That's when it has like enemy thoughts, evil thoughts makes it an enemy. Something as an NPC typically
deep.
Yeah, when it has the ability to move but doesn't typically have the ability to think like an enemy. So it's quite nice. It's
quite evil fairies, just things like that, as long as they swap around. Yep. Yeah,
make the whole windmill rotate. That would be very funny.
Yes. I could do that.
So you worked with me some time ago on the abilities. We can go straight into the special abilities if you like, or we can get the general lay of characters.
There's no play from here option, is there, in Unity? You can't just say right-click.
No, it's a bit annoying, isn't it? You can't just play from here, but you can grab the... you could, for example, grab the transform of the current, or you could take the camera and align with view. That would be the easiest. But that won't work at playtime. So you'd have to copy the transform and then paste it in.
What transform?
Of, say, well, as a rough approximation, it'd be the you can't get the transform of where this camera is right now, where this kind of edit view camera is. No, there isn't a play from here. What I tend to do is, I tend to grab an object there's probably a better way, and if anybody in the chat's got a better way, but if we want to quickly play from here, I tend to grab an object. I tend to go and grab an object that's right in front of where you want to be. Grab its component.
That's much improved.
Its transform. What's that? Oh yeah, that's really good. Grab its transform and then paste it over the player, basically, so it moves the player start position. There's lots of other things you could do. You could spawn the player to a particular start position and then have that move around very easily. Whole bunch of things. Yeah, is it going to be set in Discworld? It's a bit kind of insane. Rick will tell you more about the game design aspects of it a bit later on. Blade stays still and the building rotates. That's quite a fun idea here. Yeah, some good ideas coming in here. Windmill squeaks. The NPC asks you to make it stop. You stop the blades, but then the windmill starts to spin. Yeah, that would be really funny. Like magically freeze the blades, right? And then the whole windmill rotates. That actually could be really quite funny. So, yeah, definitely possible. Yeah, characters is a big one. Should we chop through the characters a little bit? Make sure we're aligned on that. There's a bit of, I tried to chop into Unity's character class as much as possible, but and it did get a fairly heavy refactor, but there's still reminiscences of Unity's default third-person character class in here. So if you look at that character script on the right-hand side there, there's quite a lot to it. And that's just because we used out-of-the-box NavMesh agent behavior.
Oh, yeah.
So it's unfortunate, but it has all been touched and all been refactored and all been thought about, but there are a lot of tuning parameters on here. And that wall of serialized fields is looking like it might want to go out to a scriptable object to customize different characters, potentially. Mm-hmm. It gets fun when you start, and give me a shout when you start getting pains around prefabs and where data's stored, etc.
Yeah.
So
refactoring that stuff and keeping your data, that'll be fun.
Yeah, it's quite fun. It is. I quite like all that stuff, actually. So the paradigm with the characters here is that it adds the required components, as you saw, and then basically this is a refactor of Unity's character class, and it focuses on updating the animator and calculating movement velocities, etc.
So add required components is...
Oh, it's Tasty Graph is reminding us that in the bottom of the game object menu we can align to view. That's true.
Was that?
Tasty Graph's telling us that in the bottom of the game object menu we can align to view or align to selected. So we can pick something and then align the camera. Align the camera. So you can do that, but we just have to be a bit aware that the camera is childed on an arm to the player, so it's not as trivial as that.
Yeah, it's not going to help us move anywhere, is it? Where's the align to game object?
You've got in the game object menu, you've got align view to, align with view and align view to selected, but it will only work on when you need a game object selected like the camera. But the problem is the camera's childed to the player, so we really need to move the player if you want to start from a particular place. So the easiest way I've found to do it, and it's not going to work with... Be aware, by the way, Rick's done a naughty. One of his... In a couple of instances, his parent objects are rect transforms. So be aware here whether you're in a transform or a rect transform. He's been a bit naughty and put rect transforms, UI-style rect transforms in a couple of places. So that will just need clearing up. Because if you make a parent object a rect transform, then any children come out as rect transforms as well.
Oh, right, that's a bit strange.
So yeah, he's done that just in one place. I think environments is accidentally a rect transform.
Oh, there you go. That's how it works. Does it have gravity? Yes.
Yep. So a couple of questions to answer, and we'll crack on with characters. Which engine do I like the most? Let's not ask that question again. All of them for different purposes. I mean, thanks for asking, but I answer it every single stream.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Get an intro to 3 different engines, and then make your own mind up depending on your personality, your skill levels, and the project you're trying to do. Is what I would say. Unity, Unreal, Godot would be my top 3 choices in no.
You need it on your buttons.
I do need it on my button. I'll make a stock response.
Stock response too. Yeah.
Fazio, you're very welcome. Thank you for saying that you like our content. So characters. So there's characters is that. Okay, dominant hand is the most ridiculous script. It just is being used as a strong tag, a refactorable tag.
Okay.
So that's it for the moment. The health system is pretty obvious. It's health with the sounds that go with getting hurt, basically. So that's a relatively simple class.
Yep.
Now, special abilities, let's just eat the frog and deal with special abilities. Special abilities is quite interesting, probably worth opening it in Visual Studio. So to make a special ability, we create ourselves this ability config. And it actually takes an array. Now, why does special... Okay, because there is just one special abilities instance in the game. And it's all of the abilities, and it's configured, so your list of special abilities down there in the game window, that's the special abilities instance is responsible for that container, and then you insert special abilities into these slots.
Yeah. For some reason I can't navigate to that ability config. It's a bit annoying. Is there a way to rebuild a Visual Studio project file?
I think you need to, because it's not recognizing that ability config type for you. And
how do I do that?
From inside Visual Studio, I think. Doesn't make sense, though. I would...
wonder whether I don't
just try reloading the project to start with. Yeah, it's not recognizing all your types, is it?
No, it's not.
I suspect if you just close Visual Studio.
Maybe someone in the chat has an idea what to do with this.
If anyone
open Visual Studio, is there?
No, it might be worth just closing Unity in Visual Studio, because the first time you opened it, it had a problem.
Open C# project.
Yeah, had to install some dependencies for us.
Yeah, I think it's still trying to. Yeah, it won't do it while it's running. Project was unloaded.
Can you just reload the solution? I don't think there's a right-click. Your system may have a right-click install so that you can just right-click and regenerate Visual Studio solution. We shall see. Your Visual Studio community needs a bit of love. That's the thing. So I'm going to check the chat for a minute while we go for that. Yeah. So thanks, TerraVice. I appreciate your rock paper scissors. I'm getting bored of saying it, so you guys can start saying it now. Good. I'm glad, Tasty Graph, you like the idea of using... sometimes it feels a bit heavyweight, but using a script as a tag makes things nice and refactorable. I would probably mainly do it in an instance where there's a chance that that script will also need some behavior or data later. But, oh, that rhymed, data later.
Must be right.
Yeah. Well, let's not worry about that. Let's not worry about your local setup. You can get that sorted. But do you want to go and look at ability config separately if this doesn't work?
Yeah, I just might have to now stop this thing from doing its thing.
We could just browse in Visual Studio Code or something if you want.
I can definitely just browse in Visual Studio Code.
We like Visual Studio Code. It's become the most popular IDE on the planet.
On the planet? That's ridiculous. How do they measure that?
Move your camera down a tiny bit, just so because your label is covering your face up. There he is.
What label?
You can't see your label. It's on my screen.
Oh, right, I see.
In your thumbnail.
That's not my fault then.
The problem, don't worry, Brian, it's just visuals. It's Sam's Visual Studio Code set up and his solution building for Unity. It's not quite got the solution built properly, so it can't see his other types.
I'm literally fresh out of Unreal, so I'm not.
He's all set up for Unreal.
Yeah. So we're looking for some C# stuff.
Yeah, so you are into scripts or special abilities if we want to look at the ability config. I think it's ability config will be in there. There you go. Special scripts, special abilities, ability config.
Can this do the jumping? Oh, I can install the C# extension.
It's one of the things I like about Visual Studio Code. As soon as it detects that you're in a file that you can, we will have Unity regenerate the solution files, but I think for speed and simplicity, so we don't mess up Sam's Unreal setup, we're just going to use code for the moment. It's something different for you guys anyway.
Yep. So we have an ability config C# file here in the special abilities, which is all under the character namespace. So we don't have any further namespaces for ability stuff, which looks like there's a lot under there. We could have namespaced it, right?
Potentially, but I've not had a problem to solve yet with it. So
yeah, but what is the problem?
The idea with the ability
pain you've been feeling with namespaces? How have you chosen what to namespace in the first place?
Based on the notional idea that we were going to separate out into core combat, special abilities, inventory and dialogue, etc. But I think that separation is less important now, and it's more about getting the project finished in a way that works and adding on part 2. So I'm open to. It started off as an experiment. It's like, if we're going to have lots of scripts in a big project, let's namespace. And it started to become quite useful because it helps me see the top level dependencies. So the consequence of it for me is entirely that it lets you see top level dependencies between different areas.
Yeah, it's a bit.
And to ask questions like, does it make sense for a camera to need to know, or a raycaster to need to know about the concept of a character? Well, probably, but it keeps you honest. It's keeping you super honest to what's talking to what. So,
except when you've got massive namespaces, it doesn't very much.
Except when you've got massive ones, but they're all sub namespaces. They're all RPG dot something. Then none of them are just RPG. So.
Yeah, okay, but the characters.
But abilities is got a bit big, so I think that if you're
abilities and characters have got big. I would say the whole characters I would massive.
Totally agree that could be sub namespace down. That would be fine. So this ability config is saying that if we look at that for a sec, every special ability has an energy cost. We assume they all have particles, some special animation, and an array of clips that they may.
So this is an animation that runs on the character, right?
Yes. That every time you do a special ability, it costs some energy, fires some particles, plays an animation, and plays a random audio clip for that ability. It also, you specify a behavior, which can be a generic behavior, and then it goes from there. So
you can just run.
And we can run
abstract class.
Yeah, so we've got a use interface, an abstract method for use.
Yep. And the setup. I remember doing this with you.
Yeah, you did this with me, right? So this is playing particle effects, playing the ability, etc. Now we've got, if you look into the folders, the area effect, power track, self heal. We're using inheritance here. It's one of the few instances, and you don't have to use inheritance. We could have composed this. But it felt neat to use inheritance here to say, okay, then for a given thing, we extend those classes with their own config, so data that is specific to healing, like the amount of health you add, and behavior that's specific to healing. So that's what we're doing there.
How would you do this without inheritance?
Well, you would just have an ability component, and then you'd have a heal ability component or something, which requires the ability component. And then just do it that way.
And then you'd have to.
So if you added heal
for
ability,
a
it would
use
automatically
event on the ability or something like that.
Yeah, you can. It's always the same thing.
Yeah,
right?
you'd have to invert. You'd have to find some other way of inverting the dependencies, basically.
Yeah, it would work all right, to be honest. You could just grab a heal ability, drop it on a component, and provide
my point is that the ability component would have no way of knowing what interface the other component has. The ability component would have no way of knowing what the interface to the heal component is. So the heal component would have to be responsible for registering itself at runtime for events on the ability component. So here we're essentially doing that inversion of dependencies that would have happened at runtime. We're doing it in compile time.
Yeah, exactly. And that didn't look as neat when we looked at it as just doing it with inheritance. So.
Yeah, I mean, inheritance is very neat and it's to solve a problem.
And I wanted to show inheritance in the course as well because we want to show people that there's another way and there's not a right or a wrong, that there's just two ways and they have their consequences. So this worked quite nicely in that you can get arbitrary behavior that extends the default behavior. So you get some coherence out of the behavior, and then you get some differences. So.
Yep, that makes sense.
So these are the bits where you're calling to the superclass, obviously, and it's just doing the same thing for all of them. And then this is the stuff that's specific to the particular ability. In this case, all it does is add health. And
this is generic, right? This is the self-heal behavior.
What's that?
That the generic stuff would be happening in behavior here.
Yeah, so the calls up to the superclass is what I was pointing out.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's saying this stuff is shared. We can
that's shared.
The order in which it happens, we can choose. But
yeah, and I would probably have put these lines of code down the bottom actually, just so that it's obvious what the shared behavior is.
If everything does this, we could have done this in use.
Potentially, yes, but they don't. So if you look at different ones, you look at power attack behavior. So we remember it's sound, particle, and animation. Let's see, does this do it? Yes. So that's looking like it could be in use. And then area effect. Yeah, so in this case, it's the point at which that could all be factored out into use, if they're literally all going to do that.
Yep.
I seem to remember that you actually could detect the difference in... So there's two things to watch out for here when you dive into it. One is, I seem to remember you could see the order that they run in somehow. I'm not sure how you can see it that fast, but it seemed to impact how it actually appears. And the other thing to be careful of is whether the code is sufficiently order independent to be allowed to run in different orders. You would hope it would be, but I'm not 100% sure it is. But if it is and it all works, definitely a refactor out into use is an
It's good to know AEGT unknown that in your project you include delays, different delays for each of them. So that's probably a good thing to have the ability to do things differently in those different behaviors. Thanks for letting us know that.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, of course, when you see a pattern of 3, that's when you start to think maybe we do this somewhere else. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the first pain is when you want to start updating that order across the board. For now, it's not a problem.
Yeah, Bryant, I'm not planning on putting flying Daleks into the RPG unless Rick really wants them.
That would be a bit weird.
That would be a bit strange.
So that's a system actually that you and I came up with together anyway. So as you get back into it, you'll remember it because it's partially your invention. It was quite good. I mean, I remember the time with Rick when I said, what are these special abilities able to do? And he basically said anything. And I'm like, oh, great. So this is where we're quite proud of this architecture, which allows you to basically run arbitrary code and some common code. So that was cool.
Yeah.
All right, so that's special abilities. What else? Then the other major thing here is probably the weapon system and the way that works. We're doing something funky with weapons with regards to spawning into the world, the weapon that you need to pick up, and effectively getting nested prefabs in here, if I remember. Somewhere we've got an editor script. Now, is it the waypoint? No, it's not the waypoint container. Let's look at this, weapon system. So this weapon system is relatively simple. And is all powered off weapon configs here, which tell you about how much damage they do, etc.
Yep.
Can we have a look in the weapons folder, subfolder? There's something I'm trying to get to with weapons that you might find handy. So weapon config is relatively simple. So this is the idea that you even specify the prefab of how a weapon looks like as part of the weapon config.
Yeah, to swap it out, that makes sense.
So you can swap it out. Now there was a weapon pickup point. This is the one that I think has an editor script that I wanted to run through with you.
Where, sorry?
The weapon pickup point, CS. Here you go. So this is an execute in edit mode script.
Yeah.
So this is a transform in the world that knows what weapon config it should be showing. And then when you're not playing, if application is not playing there, it's difficult to, I won't highlight. So in update, if the application's not playing, then we destroy all the children and instantiate weapons. So this is where we are trying to get around, I think it was effectively, and you did this with me as well, this was effectively trying to get around nested prefabs. We wanted to have weapons that could, we needed to be able to preview weapons in edit mode, even though we didn't have full prefabs for them. We had their meshes, We know what they look like, but we're not using prefabs of each weapon because there's a lot of stuff that's common to weapons, and the main thing that changes is their stats, which is often the weapon config, and then their appearance, which is a mesh. And because you don't have nested prefabs, we couldn't do that in the editor. We couldn't say here's weapon A, here's weapon B, but share all the stuff that's common about weapons because you don't have nested prefabs. Now in the very latest version of Unity, I'm not quite sure where it is right now, whether it's in the package manager or if it's, I think it's still in the package manager. There are nested prefabs, so we might re-architect. You might want to re-architect based on that.
How would nested prefabs help this one?
So the fundamental point, if I grab a diagram, is that you want in the world a weapon sitting there that you can see. The things that compose it are its stats, if you like, which are off in our config file, and then the mesh, and then there's other stuff. Let's just call it other. So this stats is in a .asset file in a scriptable object, and the mesh is obviously just a mesh, you know, what do we call meshes? FBX probably. And then there's other stuff, other common stuff to the weapon. We couldn't have weapons sitting in editor in such a way that they properly bring in these things because you'd need nested prefabs to do that. So we're composing that weapon in basically every frame in the editor from what we know about the weapon so that it shows like it looks like the right weapon in the place. You see what I mean?
I think I do. So you're saying that the mesh, that this would be a prefab of prefabs. The weapon would be a prefab that contains what would be the prefabs that it contains?
Well, you would have a mesh that could be shared across multiple weapons, for instance. That's why that would need to be a separate prefab.
Okay, yeah.
Well, it's not just the mesh, it's also the material. It's not just FBX, it's more than that. It's the whole appearance, which several weapons may share.
Yeah.
And then the stats, typically several weapons wouldn't share. And then there's a bunch of other stuff on weapon, all the common code. And they're the things you'd want a bit of sub-prefab, but we don't have sub-prefab. So we're composing this thing up in the editor every frame, which seems to be okay performance-wise, so that you can preview the weapon properly when you drop it in the world. And then at runtime, we just create and instantiate that weapon into the world, ready for pickup. So it's just a way of getting around nested prefabs. We actually did that together. You know, have a look at it offline a little bit, but that's just an overview as to why it's a little bit weird what's going on there. I think that nested prefabs would be better.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a question for you by Amarama.
Amarama, yep.
1969.
So you can see the question, guys, in the chat. Do we have any programming logic problem solving? No, we do everything as we go, Amarama. So we don't do like a primer on programming problem solving because it would be too abstract. We do everything as we get to the actual problem. And then when we get to a particular problem, we tend to dive deeper, a little bit deeper than immediately necessary. So rather than just giving you the solution to the particular problem, we tell you the why behind the solution to the particular problem and go a little bit deeper to equip you to solve not only that problem in future, but a whole class of problems like it.
But we do use pseudocode and diagrams before we do, chunky bits of logic to try and understand it better.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. We just don't front load it like at the whole beginning of the course as if like we're going to cover this entire topic.
No, you usually come up against a problem. You're like, not quite sure how I'm going to program this. And I'd grab a piece of paper and here's one of the notes from... It's just rough and ready. Let me show you what kind of stuff I've come up with in my notebooks. Just random little charts like this. I don't know whether it's coming in.
Your audio is very quiet there.
Because
I can see it. I've maximized your video. So that will then turn into a slide in the slide deck in the course.
Yeah. In this case, actually, I found there was a simpler way even after that. So I didn't. That's not what ended up in the slide deck. But yeah, often you do little diagrams to help you understand problems a bit better.
I don't think somebody just swore at anybody. I didn't mean to swear at you. It's not impossible. Okay, cool. So where are we? So that was the weapons. I just wanted to point out there's something a little bit weird about weapons and weapon containers, but it seems to work well enough. A bunch of these things have right-click menus inside the game. So inside the assets folder of the engine, you can right-click and say create. and there's a whole sub-menu, RPG, and then all the things that you can create there. So,
yeah, no. If you're asking about my notes, I think the letters were FURUTR. I think there's just F and T for true and false, and U was I don't know. R was reset, and U was update or something. Or something
oh,
like
okay. Was it close to spelling something naughty? Is that
it
what's
was
going on?
close to spelling something that I hadn't even noticed.
You're welcome, Amarama. We are taking questions. So, where are we? So weapons, so that then you specialise down into the weapons. Might be worth a quick look at the weapon, like, component. I'm not sure what weapon components is. I've completely forgotten what weapons component subfolder is. I'll soon remember. Material. Oh, okay. That's just the common materials for it. And then you're into a bunch of different bastard swords, yeah. A bunch of different weapons, which are normally defined probably by their. I don't know whether all the meshes are in there.
So I assume the weapon pickup point is just a point in the world where you will see the weapon and you can pick it up.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
You could go and have a look at it, but yeah, it's just.
I haven't seen any while I was playing. Maybe on.
So if you just go find the weapon pickup point script and look for instances in the world, it's into weapons. There you go. That thing. Or the prefab. You might be able to do it from the prefab as well. Find references in the scene would probably be more reliable.
There's only one.
There's one there. If you just click up here, take you to it. There it is. So and then just clear the search over here, and then the world will become alive again rather than this barren grey world. So there you go. There's a sword stuffed in a rock there.
So let me just do the trick. Select the player, game object. Align with view. There you go, now he's floating in the world.
No, he's going to get stuck in a tree.
Is he going to get stuck in a tree? He's not, he's on the ground. Amazing. But where is the stone?
The sword really is uncertain of its parentage. Yeah, that is the story. I don't know which bit we're talking about swearing, whether it's Sam's notebook or whether it's the sword. But yes, it is a sword that does not know where it's from.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
You're in trouble. There you go, there's the sword. Now, I think it is, and that does not look like a weapon pickup to me, actually. Not sure where Rick's left it with the pickups. But basically, it is, if we look at it, the weapon pickup in the hierarchy, you'll see, I think it just has a single script on it and then links out to a scriptable objects. Yeah, these days, Amarama, you need to involve your players with the creation of your game, certainly over the long run, because they can really help you, just like you guys help us with the creation of the courses.
Do you want to have a look at it in the world? Where?
If you like, I'm not worried. I mean, it's relatively simple. There you go. There's a weapon pickup. It's got a weapon pickup point component on it. And basically you specify which weapon and what the sound is. And
so
then
I could change the weapon config, for example.
Yep.
And that should change the sword, shouldn't it?
Yep.
Doesn't look
but they all look the same, so you'd need to choose
They all look the same. Let's put a pitchfork.
This is the sub-prefabbing business.
The pitchfork in the rock. Oh.
Yeah, we teach very fluid development here.
This is very annoying.
Yeah, you might be raycasting into a piece of UI or something like that. There you go. So that's changed the pitchfork. We've also got the idea on the config of a socket and the ability to choose where these things are set up around. So if you look at the actual pitchform scriptable object definition here, I think that would be the way to adjust it rather than moving the weapon point. Yes, so what you've got is a grip.
It's a grip transform. I think that's different though.
Yeah. So every object has a grip transform. So this concept of a grip, a prefab, does actually go off to a prefab here, an attack animation, and then various other things like the attack range and damage delay and all the rest of it.
Yeah. That's clear enough.
Okay. So that's that. Slight difference with melee and ranged weapons, not huge difference. We tried to keep them as similar as possible, but they do branch off obviously at some point because they're not exactly the same thing.
So how do you distinguish between them? Does it get an attack range? Is that basically it?
Yeah, but we need that in both. I don't remember. If you look at, I think they actually aren't any different. I think we're just using folders here.
Where's ranged?
I don't think there's any fundamental difference between them.
No, there's no code under ranged.
No, they're all going to be. No, they aren't. I don't. We didn't write any different code because we didn't. We made the combat in such a way that that weapons were basically the same whether they were ranged or not. So, and we didn't hit a gameplay constraint with that yet.
Can I take this thing, this pickup, and make me pick up a bow instead?
Yeah, you should be able to, just by specifying the bow scriptable object and adjusting the grip. No, don't adjust the grip. The grip tells you how it sits in his hand.
The grip should be right.
Yeah, don't adjust the grip.
Ranged bows. Go.
Yeah, and remember, what we do, whether we're bottom up or top down, we have constant discussions around this. Rick's very much a top down guy, and that's pretty cool. And we do a bit of both, actually. We let the actual journey of developing the game dictate what's possible, what feels good, actually help us to create new ideas, like the idea that the windmill rotates around the blades instead of the other way. We let that happen. That's the bottom-up filtering. But we're also very keen on the very core. One of the first things Rick will talk to you about in part 1 of the course, which I'll give you a link to, is the top-down design. We're constantly asking questions, does this fit in with our core experience that we want the player to have? So we do a little bit of both. We allow both to happen, but if there's a preference, it's probably just about for top-down, that we must stick with the core experience we're going for and then iterate on that. Go for it in a short sprint, try and get to the point where we create that feeling, that moment, that game that we want, and then iterate on that rapidly. Plenty of our courses help you think like a programmer. Particularly the Unreal course.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a big part of what we're doing.
Yeah, it's a big drive of ours that we want to create great programmers, and we want to do it the fun way by introducing them through games. Cool. Do you want to move on to another part? I just want to make sure we don't have any massive blind spots. For instance, I know that Teravice asked a while ago how the other stuff was working, the questing, etc.
Well, that's what we want to look at, really, isn't it? Next.
Dialogue and
so
quests.
Where is dialogues and quests?
It's just kind of there for whatever reason. I don't know. Yeah, that's in the right place. It's the underscores that are confusing. Feel free to ditch those underscores carefully under version control from inside Unity, obviously.
Yeah.
So let's start with the conversation and voice. Voice probably first, and then conversation.
Yeah.
So the voice is really simple at the moment. We just got something off the ground. It's like, well, if a character's going to have a voice, then you're going to need to know what conversation they're going to start having. Optionally, speaking to them will trigger a quest. Mm-hmm. There will be somewhere they need to send their dialogue to. And there's a speech bubble prefab, which will probably end up centralizing and being the same for everybody. So you pop a speech bubble above their head and find the dialogue box. That's the way it's found by tag at the moment, the dialogue box in the game. If it ever got any behavior, we could do the trick we did with dominant hand and just use an empty class or small class. Now then, this voice clicked is... It should be a delegate, but I don't see where we're registering for it, so... That's a bit confusing. So voice clicked is called when you click on something that has a voice.
Yeah, so it's done from the Raycaster.
It's done there. Okay. So you could change the dependencies around here if we wanted to. We could have the voice register itself, or the other way around. But
so this is.
That's a class I think you're going to have fun getting.
Because we've had this character thing. I don't like that dependency at all.
No, I'm not super happy with it, but I'm sure you'll have fun getting into that. I mean, to do a bit of chunky architectural moving around, I think is going to be good because it's going to really put your spin on it. So,
yeah, can do.
Okay, so where are we? So if you click on, yeah, obviously, so you show a dialog and trigger a quest, if any. It's pretty self-explanatory. Bit of protection. Now, there is a quest journal object in the world, which is keeping track of all of the currently active quests. And what we do is we just go and find that, and there is only one, and then you add the quest to it. Good overview for you guys, by the way, you RPG guys, going through this with Sam. This is why we're doing it live. So we are storing the actual active quests in a game object, so that at edit time, you can pause the game and see exactly what state all the quests are in. This is the contentious thing. This is the thing that's a bit weird, is that quests are actually game objects. So to know what quest you've got, it updates them from the scene, from the hierarchy, according to all the children of this quest parent. So you have a quest parent, then you have a whole bunch of active quests hanging under that quest parent.
Why the brackets here?
Why the brackets where? I don't know. That must have been historical. I think that at some point we were casting that to something else or something. I don't know. There's no reason for brackets there. Something, a legacy about the way we're writing the code.
So when you add a quest, how does it get to be a child of this transform?
Back in the voice, I think, or possibly from quest. I think it probably comes from quest, but if we go back to voice, the interface here is add quest, so you need to look at where you call add quest. You could just do a search for add quest. There you go. Is that happening here?
Yeah.
So,
but it's not then adding it to the transform.
It is. Well, I'm not sure where it. There you go. Hang on. Instantiate here. That's the speech bubble. I don't know where it instantiates it. Good question. It does do it, obviously. Otherwise, it wouldn't work.
It's a speech bubble.
So let's follow it through. Add quest into journal.cs. Shouldn't do it in the speech bubble. That would be bad.
So we've got a quest object by this point already. Is quest monobehavior? Is saying yes.
Yeah.
So we've already got it at that point. So you've got all your quests already. They're just not active.
Yes. Yes. The quests, of course, the quests are determined at design time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can go and make a new quest over in the engine if you like. That might show you how it all hangs together better.
I think I've got some idea, but yeah, we can do that.
It'll answer Teravice's question about how this all hangs together as well. So these are the quests. So
I don't like the fact that they have a transform. That's super weird.
Yeah, I don't like the fact they have a transform, but if you want something that's I mean, you could write custom editor scripts to inspect this stuff. I wanted to make it inspectable while we were putting it together.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact it has a transform.
You can't inspect a scriptable object then, is that right?
Yeah, no, because which instance of it? You know,
nor a component wouldn't be inspectable?
No, only monobehaviors. And monobehaviors.
A component could be though, right? If you had a quests game object, but then you'd have to have some sort of game object, or you would have it on the player. So you could have a player that has a bunch of quest components.
You could hang it off the player potentially, yeah, and then the potential quests go around with the player. Or you could hang it off the quest giver and then do it some other way. You create a data. I didn't want to create a data structure that replicates. I wanted to keep the data in just one place, and we've pushed it quite hard, and it's worked so far. The only thing I don't like about it is the fact I've got a transform, and so we just decided to let go of that for the moment.
All right, so I've now got my dude in the wrong place.
He's floating.
Need to go to zone 1. No.
Wow, it's hot now.
Is that where we are? Yes, that's zone 1. Where are all your quest givers?
They're all in the if you go to zone 1 meadows and then you go to the bottom of it, it's the guys at the bottom of that. There you go. It's things like, well, just go into that area, double click on like escape detector. They're all in that pen.
Yeah, okay.
So it's all this lot. They're all our quest givers in the meadows there. So the way it hangs together is you've got a quest which is just specified. The quest in the hierarchy is just specified by having a quest script attached to it. And then a given quest giver, you may need to go up to, here you go, to him. You can now look in his inspector. You've got the conversation that he triggers, the quest that he initiates, and then it goes and finds the canvas and the speech bubble, which arguably it could find a different way. It could potentially find these things without you having to specify it in the inspector. You go and find those things by type. It'd probably be better.
Yeah, okay.
So that then points to the quest and the conversation, and then the quest is actually a physical object in the game, and that's where the data's stored. Just keeping an eye on the chat. They're chatting away about various coding things. Interesting how people like to have conversations behind the conversations. I guess they're conversations inspired by what we're doing.
Or entirely not.
Or entirely not.
The deliver thing is a quest, this quest script.
And the common stuff at the moment is they all have reward coin was the most basic reward for completing, and then they have an enum which tells you the state. We don't have locked at the moment. It's a possibility, or blocked behind something else, but to keep it really simple, we've just said that they're either available or started or complete. And then the final thing you need to look at is what's the completion criteria of a quest. So if we look at the bottom of the meadows area that we're in, we've also got the completion criteria, which are various, various things. Have a look. Just scroll up a little bit. Down there.
Escape detector.
This slot here are all game objects in the world that tell us that they are going to do something like complete a quest. So this is a trigger script. So the trigger, escort, etc. are the types of quests that we can deal with. They're obviously in the folders over here in a nice way somewhere. And each of them knows a quest it needs to complete and optional other information. So this was an example
bridge.
of like
okay.
So
I was trying to figure out how I could. Oops, I'm in the wrong place. Just trying to figure out how I could have completed that script. So completed the escort thing. So that makes sense now. I can go to play here.
Yeah, learning Azrael Studio is a huge part of the enjoyment. That's what we're all addicted to here. So that's why you get us teaching you so much, because we love learning new stuff.
So he needs to come here. And when he gets here,
yeah, then
he should stop following me.
I think so. I don't know if... I think escort was the latest we did. I don't know if we got as far as stopping him following. I don't know whether the quest is completed. This is where you can just pause the game and look in the hierarchy and see if the quest is completed or not.
Take me to the bridge. No, it's started.
So yeah, that's not... No, the difference... We're getting confluted. This is not the same bridge. That's a bridge miles away. The find the bridge quest is the one that you're... It's just confusing that there are two. So there's a guy who gives you a find the bridge, and then you as a player go to find the bridge.
Yeah, I do find it confusing. I feel like I should be able to click on the find the bridge, and it should take me to the guy.
Yes, so I think it should... So exactly, there's two options. It either should take you to the guy who deals out the quest, but remember he's going to move around the world, or it could take you to the place where the quest is completed.
Yeah, or the place where it's initiated.
Yeah, either way it's initiated or where it's completed. If it's initiated hanging off somebody who's then pacing around the world, then that's a decision. But I do agree that now having seen it all hang together, one of those two would make more sense. But what you'll lose with that is you'll lose the ability to quit.
So what I should be able to do is I should be able to find... Can I find references to this thing? Somehow?
You can select dependencies is probably the best you're going to get. But
no, it hasn't done anything here.
Yeah, I'm not sure that you can. What are you hoping to
well, I'd like
find?
to see who is referencing this Take Me to the Bridge quest so that I could see who can give it and who can complete it. So
yeah,
link this.
Yeah, now that's not easy to reference through because it goes through a scriptable object. Therefore, there's no instance at this moment. That's the difficulty there.
I don't think it does go through a scriptable object, though. What I was seeing is when you had this fake bridge, it links directly to that.
Oh, you want to just reverse that link? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have thought that the find dependencies would do it.
Doesn't seem to find anything in the scene.
It does not, does it?
You can do a find in scene, but that's not very helpful.
No, and you're not going to be able to do it by type because the type of this thing is just quest.
It doesn't have, it doesn't have types.
Yeah. So now that we've got all those three elements, you know, the giver, the databasing of the quest, and then the triggering of the completion of it, I think it is worth thinking about how, you know, if you don't like that transform thing, go with it, then change it. But try not to lose too much of the ability to see the state of the quest at runtime nice and easily.
Yeah, I get that's an important thing. Right.
And you know, it'd be easy enough to make an editor script, or even just a single game object that has an array of quests and you can see their states. It's just, you just run against Unity's editor limitations a little bit. But maybe people would like to study, you know, custom editors. Maybe that's necessary in the RPG. I've been avoiding it for the moment where possible, but it might be necessary.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the find the bridge thing was, but never mind. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
so that's
just by the tree. Oh, well, yeah, question of which tree.
I think I get the idea. So you've got generic scripts that can finish a quest. The quest is just is that type that hangs it all together based on its state, essentially. So really, the only important information about a quest is its state.
Yeah, I mean, have a quick look at the scripts, maybe over in Visual Studio for questing. I feel like we did that, but we didn't. We started out, it's just that the other stuff feels like it. Special abilities feel a bit like it. That's all it is. So you've got quests here, and then you've got quest completion as well. So if we look at quests to start with, the base object, yeah, you've got an enum, which I declare outside of the class at the top of quest.
Yeah, this is very light, basically. It's just
It's just getters, just data. Yeah, exactly. But you need to, you know, I'm very keen to protect the data, particularly with a scriptable object, because if code writes to a scriptable object's private member, it's going to actually edit what's on the disk, which is even worse than a runtime overwrite, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been round in circles about the ability to do read-only getter, you know, read-only properties inside C#, but we can't do it in the version of C# that Unity's bound to. So.
Yeah. So
Pain in the butt, but that's it. So you've got the general quest thing, and then you've got the quest completion criteria there. Now they are subclasses again. We're inheriting again. So have a look first at quest completion.cs because that's the superclass.
Yep.
So quest completion in general knows which quest you're going to complete, and simply completes that quest and earns a reward. And then earning the reward is finding the player and giving him coins. So that's the general quest completion pattern at the moment.
And then everything else inherits.
Everything else inherits and adds whatever the thing is. So kill, you can see what it's doing is like, is the host dead? Complete the quest. So it's all quite, you know, it's quite simple really.
So where does it get the information about the host?
There. So the kill quest is on a particular person you want to kill.
Of course.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I've done so far with where we've been building this live on the streams is focusing on the readability of the code. It reads very nicely. It doesn't hang together in the editor quite as nicely as I would like, but it's you know, it's where we are. So it's a pretty good start.
Yeah, I mean that seems fine to me. I don't see a problem with this.
It's all right. I'm not. I mean, I'm never happy with the architecture of my code, but I've got very high standards for it. So it's okay. I'm sure it'll be better as you combobulate it. Just don't lose readability. And I've also been doing a very horizontal slice here. So I've been going across. I've been favoring going wide. It's a breadth first search basically for the solution to this questing and inventory. We've said, look, let's not go too deep at all into quest until we consider its impact on inventory and on conversations. So there's been a lot of that. I'm just going to pop to the loo. They can ask you questions for a second.
Yeah, guys, do ask me questions for a second. Obviously, for those of you who weren't here at the beginning of the stream, the whole purpose of this, to recap, is I'm going to be taking over from Ben on the RPG. So I'm going to be working with Rick to do the programming sides of things, to get this thing completed to a fully fledged RPG game. That's the point. So let me know what you think of that. Whether you have any questions, programming related, Unreal related, Unity related. I can try and help. I'm only just getting back into context with that one. In the meantime, I'm going to see if I can figure out how to get my setup working again with Visual Studio. So Musu Magical Bridge Studio. Not sure there's a big difference between our code styles. So you're asking whether our code style is different from Ben's. My code style is different from Ben's. I wouldn't say there is a huge difference particularly. It's certainly not going to be anything you notice syntactically in terms of I'll be following Unity style guide, keeping small methods. I mean, we agree all these styles between ourselves. Mostly me and Ben set the style that we want to do as GameDev.tv, and we talk about a lot of it together. So hopefully you won't notice much code style difference, and it should be all right. Shouldn't notice too much. And that's generally a good programmer will adapt their code style to be in different environments. So, but good code is quite universal, I'd say. Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you're looking forward to it. And Brian, what are you responding to? Yes, I should just watch the videos. I'll watch all 50 hours of it rather than just look at the code, right? Definitely. Teravice, I did not see the addition to the game, sadly. I think Ben clipped it, but he never got around to showing me, and I really wanted to see it. Apparently, it has my eyebrows featuring quite prominently, and I'm looking forward to this. In the meantime, I might have a little poke around the code while Ben's not here and poke fun at it. So I think, he keeps saying this is a really weird system for dialogues and quests. I don't think it's that weird or unconventional. I think it's quite neat. But don't tell Ben I said that. I don't want to compliment him to his face. That would be terrible. But it seems, straightforward. The quest has got the minimum information it needs. Okay, it exists in the world. But it's just a mono behavior, so it could exist on. Mono behaviors themselves don't have transforms. It's game objects that they exist on have transforms. So that, I guess it has to be the only quest on a given mono behavior. That's slightly the weird thing. How would it work if you had two? This is slightly odd. But if I copy this quest component and put it on the take me to the bridge, I can presumably add multiple quest components. That's how it works. So you can only have one component per game object of the same type. So that's why you can't do this. That sort of makes sense. I'm going to have to get my head around the restrictions that are put in place by Unity's architecture. Because coming from Unreal, you can generally do a load of different stuff that you can't do in Unity around setting up your blueprints, childing your blueprints, and having default values for things in blueprints. And you just got a lot more architectural levers to pull. You can definitely tie a noose around your neck with them, but Unity definitely simplifies things a little bit, but you have to elbow your way out of an architectural corner sometimes when you don't have enough levers to pull.
Awesome. I'm back briefly. I think we're nearly at the end of this initial stream. I guess you were comparing Unreal to Unity there, as often comes up.
Well, I was just having a look. I was thinking, what happens if you have a game object that has multiple components of different quest types? And then I realized you can't do that in Unity because you can't put multiple components of the same type on a game object, which is why when you reference something of a component type, you can just drag the game object in because it's a one-to-one mapping. You can't have, if it has that component, it only has one component, so it knows exactly which one you're referring to. I mean, I think this is quite a neat dialogue system. I think we'll have to, one of the next bits is going to be how to do more interesting conversations, I suspect, that are more than just a...
Yeah, that was one of the, that's what I was saying, horizontal brush over the top, make sure that the base works, but yes, absolutely, conversations are not very interesting right
So
now.
let's talk about like what the areas that we need to expand upon, and then we can call it a day for the stream.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, well, the first thing is stabilize and understand, right? But if there's a next function to build that to give your refactoring a purpose, I would say it would be the next piece of conversation. Now we'd loop back to that. It'd be I have more than just an opening gambit and a reply on the conversation.
Yeah, so that might require a bit more work on the UI side of things to be able to say, okay, go on to the next bit, cancel out of this conversation, etc.
Yep, exactly. So I would make that your next and refactor around that assumed next piece of functionality.
Yep. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Personally, guys, you should get less squirrels with Sam. He's not. Sam probably won't. I'm guessing you're not going to stream as much as I did in terms of
I don't
to come on and do
It'll
updates.
probably be heads down without streaming, but I think we will do a weekly update with me and Rick at least, maybe Ben as well.
Do you want to arrange a time with Rick rather than saying it's definitely 8 p.m. next week, our time, 6 hours later than this? Maybe it's even.
Well, I thought we might do a first review with you of the code. And then
Rick, me, you, and Rick.
Well, perhaps Rick, but it's not a good time for him. So
let's go with that 8 p.m.
And
so
then
that's 6 hours.
Choose a different time for Rick.
Yeah, no worries. So 6 hours later than this next Tuesday, guys. That'll appear on the events shortly, and we can go from there. In fact, you could pop it on the events this time, Sam.
Yep. All right. Well, I don't have
use
the.
One of the
I don't
use one of the existing thumbnails. There are enough that we don't need to keep regenerating them.
All right. Then they need some kind of numbering or something.
Not on the thumbnails. I'm going to stop doing that. That makes it really annoying.
All right.
There's a handful of thumbnails there that will work. So see you on the next one. The next stream overall, guys. Just check our events page. But I know that some of you are on mobile, so I'm just going to do that for you. I can show you when our next stream overall is. Remember to follow us if you aren't already. It allows you to chat in the chat and allows you to know when we are next on. The next one is later than usual. It's actually today, I believe. Yes, today at 8:30 p.m., which is in about 3 hours. 3 hours and 12 minutes time. It will be us doing a Tier 3 only, Meet the Mentors. So anybody can attend, of course, but it's for the Tier 3 people. Remember, if you're Tier 3, turn up early on Zoom, 15 minutes early. You can use the same Zoom room we used for the previous times. I've messaged you all through a whisper. Turn up there, ready to go, and we'll look forward to doing the Tier 3 mentoring with you a little bit later than usual so that the Australians can join in.
Nice.
Awesome, Sam. Good luck. Good luck taking over.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be. It's going to be really interesting to see how it shapes up with your input. So my job now is to go off and quickly finish the C# conversion of Godot up to date, which Jan's course, the Godot course, which starts to come out this week, and will be generally available on Udemy next week. And then I'm going to be looking at reinforcement learning, how we're going to teach AI agents to do cool stuff in game environments. So a whole new foray for us. And if you'd like a streaming series around that, then then you better slam the chat right now with some love to tell me that you want a streaming series around learning reinforcement learning, AI agents teaching themselves things, AlphaGo and DeepMind style, but with much simpler projects. That's the sort of thing. Think starting with Pong and Angry Birds and then working your way up from there.
So Perceptual Lucidity is asking whether we can do a quick AMA to wrap up the stream. I guess we've got 10 minutes before the end. We can do that. So
I think that would be a nice
slam us with some AMA questions, and we can see what we can do. And we'll obviously answer as many as we can fit into 10 minutes. So jump on that.
Let the clock determine. So there's a bit of a delay. I've got the streams set up for quality rather than latency. So a bigger buffer is the bottom line there. This is my new bit of gear while we wait for the AI to come through. A Drobo 5D3. Gets very mixed reviews on Amazon, but mainly because of their customer support. So provided I don't need the customer support.
That's not great.
Their customer support sucks.
Amazon's
but the good thing about it is it doesn't use
fantastic,
RAID.
On the other hand.
In fact, I bought 3 drives to go with it, Sam. 4 terabyte drives. One of them doesn't work straight out the box. It's red errors immediately. Of course, it doesn't matter. I can still use the array and put the new drive in. There's something really gets my geek out about hot swapping drives in a drive array. I don't know what it is. it excites both the hardware and the software side of me. So let's start getting these questions done. Do you have any teasers you can reveal about when we expect the next RPG course? Tasty Graph, I don't quite know when the course will start shipping. It's a bit of a subject of debate between Sam and Rick right now as to whether it will start shipping very soon, maybe in a few weeks, or could be as many as several weeks.
It may be maybe several weeks. So let's just, for now, let's just assume it's going to be several weeks.
Yeah.
And just keep on the streams and you'll see what our progress is.
Exactly.
And when we're nearing the end of the project, that's when you will start seeing videos.
Yeah, so there's a natural tension between Rick and Sam. I think Rick will want us to start shipping it earlier before it's finished prototyping. Sam, to prevent what we call the cul-de-sac problem, will probably be wanting to start shipping it once we have sure what the end solution
I think we will find a middle ground where we're kind of comfortable on the architecture that it can take us to the end and then start shipping, probably. We'll see how that works out.
Exactly. So just keep an eye on the streams. That's where we'll let you know. Perceptual and occasional updates into the original RPG course, of course. So here, of course, well, you all know where the Udemy RPG course is, so I won't share that. So Perceptual asking, but how many languages were you fluent in, and what's your favorite?
I like the sound of Italian. Russian's quite cool as well. Those are languages you mean?
I think not. I think that was just your opportunity to show off. I'm fairly fluent in English. That's my main language. I did think the other day I might set myself the challenge of learning Spanish to the point where I could translate the courses to Spanish. I'm half committed to that, half not yet, so not committed to it is the answer, but it's a possibility.
How many other languages have I actually used? I don't know. I've done JavaScript a fair bit. Obviously some C# with Unity, C++ with Unreal, C++ without Unreal, which is a bit of a different language. Blueprint, if you count that. Python. What else? Done some obscure language called ML, which stands for meta language, which is a functional programming language. Done some Java. Done some Haskell. Haskell is a really fun language, and I seriously recommend anybody to try it, not for the value of how much you're going to be able to do in Haskell, but just for the sheer way it's going to bend your brain inside out and make you rethink everything about programming. I think that's worth doing at least once in your life. So yeah, Haskell is pretty cool, pretty interesting language.
Awesome. So the languages that I use are obviously C#, C++, Python we use more than you'd think behind the scenes, GDScript, which is a Python variant in Godot. They are the main places I find myself. I have done a bunch of assembly because I'm a sadist, and HDL, hardware description language, to determine what hardware is actually like. What else have I done?
Yeah,
that's the main stuff I spend my time in. JavaScript, I'm perfectly happy to turn my hand to. It's so similar to, Java is so similar to C# that it's a joke. I'm not too good with HTML, CSS, and that type of stuff. Regex, I have a particular weakness for regex at the moment. But at some point, I'll probably end up grokking it when I need it. I don't need it right now. So yeah, that's that. So Muzu,
I mean, you're saying, sorry, just to answer Perceptual Lucidity's follow-up, which is just that Swift took some influence from Haskell. It did, and in a very good way. I like what Swift did, apart from the fact that it's just, you can't use it in very many general purpose settings, unfortunately.
Yeah, you can use it in one very profitable setting, though, which is Mac and particularly the App
Mac
Store.
And iOS.
Mac App Store. Yeah. And the Mac App Store has the biggest...
Much better than Objective-C. I've used Objective-C
for
running this language.
Yeah, glad I've skipped that. So yes, at some point you will see Swift coming from us, not this year, but I'm very keen to get into that because there's a lot of profit to be made from apps that you guys can make for the iOS store, because iOS users spend a lot of money. The iOS store is half the size in terms of number of downloads as the Android store, the Google Play Store, but twice as profitable. So the apps are 4 times as profitable per app, per download. So it's people spend money on the iOS store, which is good. So we're going to expect weekly streams about development, or will they now be gone? No, we will see weekly streams about the RPG development, absolutely. You won't see as many daily streams about the RPG development because it doesn't suit Sam to stream as much as it suits me to stream. Yeah. I don't know how much I'll be streaming the ML stuff I'm doing and the other silly stuff I'm doing. Probably most days.
Probably a little.
But look at the series. If you look at our different events, we've got a whole bunch of different series, so they're all interleaving. There's plenty going on. There's something on the channel basically every day.
We've got a question about hardware. What hardware we use for development? It's also completely different. All of us use different things. Ben is a Mac fanboy, so he uses a Mac Pro.
I'm on an iMac at the moment, a 5K iMac, which I bought as a temporary solution while my laptop was being repaired, and I liked it so much I kept it. It's now starting to hit the limits of what I need, so I'm looking to move to a Mac Pro. But I also have a black box like that, a PC, which is Sam's, I'm sure, quiet and powerful, but very soulless PC.
It is very, very, very quiet.
Can't hear you, mate. Your mic's gone somewhere. Or your head's gone somewhere.
Yeah, it's very, very quiet. It's a nice fractal design case. And it is completely silent because it's got Noctua fans in it and stuff, which is the main thing for recording. So I can have the CPU flat out.
Design soul.
Oh, I don't know. It's quite nice. It is quite nice. As far as black boxes go, it is a nice black box.
It's not a beautifully laser cut piece of aluminium. Anyway, yes, I'm a bit of a Mac fanboy because I just like the design so much. I like the way everything appears on the screen. I like the fonts. I just like the design, attention to detail. That's what keeps winning it for me. I don't like the cost, but I do like the support. So whatever, they're all pluses and minuses. I'm very excited.
Tasty Graph's asking for some teasers of what we can expect inside the course. Well, some of what you can expect is going to be a questing system, and it's going to be a conversation system. It's not called a conversation system. It's called a dialogue system. So that's two of the main features. What are some of the other features?
Yeah, dialogue, questing, inventory. They're the main things. It's like tying a story together, telling that through quests and through dialogue, and having a decent inventory system.
Yeah,
I would say they're the main things the RPG needs now. So that's what they'll be working on. Exactly. Whatever gets the job done, I agree with the machines. It is nice to be not all in one camp. So like on my iOS, I have all my contacts and calendar in Google, and my photos actually in Google as well, to keep myself a little bit not completely tied into one ecosystem. I think that is important. I really enjoyed going to the PC temporarily. That was quite fun when I did that for about a year. Because it made me kind of stand back and look at more cross-platform solutions and stuff. And also, refuse to compromise on some things that you take for granted on Mac that weren't so easy on Windows. I found solutions on Windows, and then when I went back from Windows to Mac, I was like, there's a whole bunch of things on Mac. On Windows, for instance, snapping to left and right of the screen, this business, which you can do on Windows out the box, you can't do on Mac out the box. So again, I refused to compromise when I went back to Mac, and I took the best things from Windows and made sure that I could access them on Mac. So it's good. Same as switching game engines. You go from one to the other, and you go, hold on, you can't do that easily.
Yeah,
let's find a way.
I'm looking forward to being coming from Unreal context into the RPG and bringing in the stuff that, I'd be like, okay, well, this should obviously be done in this way in Unreal. And going, how can I achieve this? Just let's strip that back to the fundamentals of what's going on programming wise and what how we can achieve the same effect.
So the Mac PC conversation serves as quite a good frame to that. It's like, go to something else, try it, allow yourself to do it, don't get too obsessed with one, and then be open-minded enough to agree and admit to yourself that this other thing has some things about it that are better, and then when you go back to the other environment, refuse to compromise if you possibly can.
And I'd like to point out that I used a Mac for a very long time and love Macs myself. I just got really frustrated with the hardware. And
what about the hardware? What took you away?
The lack of flexibility.
Oh, and you know what it was? It was VR that knocked us all off we all got knocked off the Mac wagon temporarily when Apple, for some reason, I had in my mind that about 2 years ago, when VR was like, we needed to do a VR course, right? It became a work thing to do VR. And Mac refreshed their laptops, and for some reason, I unrealistically expected their laptops to support VR. And just the thermals don't work on a Mac of that design at the time. But I kind of had in my mind they were going to suddenly release they were going to break physics and make a Mac laptop that was just as quiet and just as slim and just as cool, and yet somehow had a GTX 1080 in it. And then when they released a laptop that wasn't even VR capable, we all went, well, we need it for work, and we all went over to PCs, including me. And then I didn't stay on PC because I had a bunch of problems and I started missing Mac. And actually, I didn't need VR because Sam ended up doing the VR course. So Sam continued to need a PC. and then you kind of stayed with it from that point of view. And then,
Yeah, I mean, I've continued to need a PC up till today, basically, and I've been doing the VR courses.
Well, you can do VR on a Mac now, but that was a while before they then turned around and said, and it's only iMacs that you can do it. So you can't do it on a laptop, and then Sam comes to mine quite often and wants a laptop. So it's all kind of about the timing of Apple. They must have lost a lot of people when they were too late to the party with VR was the fundamental problem.
Yeah, I mean, they're always a little bit behind in terms of peak performance, right? You can't quite get the same setup as you can ever get with a PC.
Yeah, I mean, the Mac
SLI graphics cards and whatever. But
yeah, the Mac Pro is pushing the bounds there now, but they're just late to the party, And yes, it seems expensive, but I really think it isn't for the full package. So anyway, depends what you value. All right, guys. So nice. See you soon.
See you soon, folks. It's been fun.
Yeah, it has been fun. See you later. So 5 hours later than this, next week.
Yep. Take care.
Be there. Be square. Oh, sorry, no. Yes, 5 hours later than this next week is the next RPG stream, but 5 hours from when this started, i.e. at 8 p.m., we've got also the Meet the Mentors tonight. So both are right. All right, check our events page. See you soon.